Our special guest today, and it's one of the reasons you've seen the last three national polls about the Republican primary field. Our guest today is either in first or second place. So if you're hosting the top candidate in the field, why not bring them to the top resort in town? I want to say a special thanks right here to our host, Bill Macikas, for a very special environment. And I also want to say thanks to the host committee who did some great work on some very, very short notice. So thank you to everyone who did that. Rubio, Senor, a lot of other people, thank you very much. When Bill and I were planning this a few weeks back, we heard something about Senator Rubio's visits to other hotels and restaurants where he was staying. And that was that Spanish-speaking employees would find a way into the room to listen to the inspiration. Rather than wait for that to happen, Bill invited them here with us. And although the help of the pocketbook will be a little lighter than others here, their presence is enriching the event. So thanks for being here, everybody. We also put acknowledgments from elected officials, starting with the mayor of this fine town, Michael Collins, Phoenix Councilman Sal DeCiccio, Phoenix Councilman Bill Gates, State Representative Tony Rivero, former United States Congressman Barry Goldwater Jr., former Tempe Mayor Hugh Hallman, former Pinal County Supervisor Brian Martin. And if I missed anybody, write a check for $2,700. I'll say it at the end. Okay. I think we all know Senator Rubio has the potential to transform the Republican Party in a very, very positive way. So, who better than two of Arizona's transformation artists and shopping center redeveloper extraordinaire and the top donor to goodwill in its history, Michael Pollock, to introduce Senator Rubio. And then Michael Block, the owner of the Basis Schools, who's transforming Arizona, not just Arizona schools, into the finest in the state, but he's got the top-ranked schools in the country, no close today. Before having Michael introduce Senator Rubio, we have a special treat. It's a little unusual in situations like this to play the Star Spangled Banner, but we called a band that has 6 million hits on YouTube for their memorable version of the Star Spangled Banner, and we're going to hear that right now, Sarah, if we can, and they gave us special permission to play this with for Senator Rubio's event today.
First of all, I gotta tell you, Jason, you never cease to amaze me. I don't know about the rest of you, but by a show of hands, how many of you had the opportunity to see Jason in a suit? Senator, you have no idea. Just having him dressed up in the suit is important. How many of you seen the tie wheel? Okay, neither have I. Well, Cheryl and I are thrilled, my wife Cheryl and I are thrilled to be part of this event today. When you think about some of the incredible accomplishments that the Senator has done for really our country, and some of the things that his ideas that he's got that can be so important. You know, when you listen, I was listening to the song, and I think one of the reasons Jason wanted to play it is because he knows my band can't play it. We wouldn't know where to start to figure it out, but it's different. And I think when we talk about different, we talk about change. And is there anybody here that doesn't think we need a little change right now? We need some change. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I promised Jason that I would keep what I had to say short, although, Senator, I have so much I'd love to say. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce, and I'll be very, very bold and say, the next President of the United States of America, Senator Rubio.
I never actually heard that rendition. That's pretty good. I hope we can get him to play it live at the inauguration, right? I'm honored to be with you guys, and I'd love to thank you for the invitation, the opportunity, and for the generosity that all of you have shown in being here today. And I want to tell you why I'm running for president, in the hopes of encouraging you to continue to support us, perhaps in more ways than you've been able to do so far. You see, I think America is unique, not in the history of modern times, but in the history of the world. Almost everyone that's ever been born in the history of mankind was born into a society where their future was decided by their past. Imagine that for a moment. Some of you may have heard me say that earlier today, but imagine. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah.
I'll just do it this way. Imagine for a moment living in a, and I'll have it like over here to pick up that. But imagine for a moment living in a society that tells you that you can only be what your parents were before you. So if your parents were poor, no matter how hard you worked, how much you sacrificed, that's all you were able to be able to do. Well, my parents were born into a society like that. They were both born into a developing country with poor parents. But they wanted more out of life and they couldn't. No matter how hard they worked or how much they sacrificed, they couldn't get ahead. So in 1956, they came here to the one place on earth, like them, could have a chance. And life wasn't easy here. It wasn't an instant success. But they persevered and they sacrificed. And working as a bartender at a hotel, and a maid at a hotel, and a cashier and stock clerk, my parents achieved the American dream. They were never rich, they were never famous, but they owned a home in a safe and stable neighborhood. They were able to retire with security and dignity. And most important of all to them, they were able to leave all four of the children better off than themselves. My parents achieved what we call the American dream. Why was that possible? How is it possible that two immigrants with very limited education, no connections, barely spoke English when they arrived, how were they able to achieve happiness? And the reason is because not only is America special, but the 20th century is special. It was the American century. Because past generation of Americans embraced industrialization and economic advancement, it produced not just the richest and most vibrant economy in the world, it produced that American dream, where everyday people who were willing to work hard and play by the rules could get ahead and leave the children better off than themselves. It also produced the most powerful country in human history. And unique in the history of the world, a nation that used its power to fight for the freedom and liberty of others. In fact, twice in the 20th century, not once, but twice, America was called upon to help the world confront and defeat evil. But now we enter this new 21st century, and a growing number of Americans are starting to doubt whether we're still going to be that kind of country for much longer. At home, they feel insecure about the future. You have millions of people in this country that do work hard, and they do sacrifice, but they live paycheck to paycheck. Maybe it's the same job they had 10 years ago when they used to be able to save some money, but now everything costs more. and their salaries haven't kept pace, and they're frustrated. Or maybe it's these young people that are graduating from college. Their whole life they were told, go to school and get a degree. Not only did they get a degree, they borrowed money to pay for that degree. And now they owe tens of thousands of dollars in student loans, and they can't find a job, or at least one they couldn't have had anyways. Or maybe it's someone who heard all their lives that America is the land of opportunity. I'm going to go out and try to open a business because I think I have a good idea. But they can't, because they figured out, depending on what industry you're in, that you have to hire a bunch of lawyers and sometimes lobbyists just to open your doors, and they can't afford it. And the result is there's growing doubt about the American dream. There's also doubt about America's role in the world. Every single day the news brings us reports about how evil is prospering somewhere, and our increasing inability, it seems, to do anything about it. And the result is a nagging doubt that hangs over our country, the belief that somehow the 21st century will not be as good as the 20th, and that America will not be as special as it once was. But I'm running for president because I think the opposite is true. I believe that the 21st century can also be an American century. In fact, I don't believe it can be as good as the 20th century. I believe it can be better. I believe that we have it within our power to build a country that will once again be the single best place in the world to create jobs, to work, to invent something. And I still believe America can continue to be the most powerful nation on earth, and a nation that uses its power for the greater good, not simply for its own ambitions. But to do that will require us to accept that the world we live in now is dramatically different from the world just 10 years ago, not to mention 20 years ago. And that we cannot embrace the promise of today using ideas from yesterday. And that's one of the fundamental challenges we have in our politics. We still have many leaders, quite frankly in both parties, who think that today's and tomorrow's answers lie in yesterday's solutions, and they don't. For starters, we live in a globally competitive environment. It has never been good, ever, to have high taxes, burdensome regulations, and the like, and big government. But it is disastrous now, because we are competing with dozens of other countries for jobs, for innovation, even for talent. Jobs have always required some level of skill, but it wasn't that long ago that people with limited skills could find a job and become a homeowner and make it to the middle class. But automation and technology have changed the nature of work. Many of the jobs that once sustained people in the middle class are now done by a machine, or they've been sent to another country, or they don't pay what they want. And globally, while America cannot solve every problem on earth, there are few problems on earth that cannot be solved without America. We are still the only nation capable of convening freedom and peace-loving people of this planet to together confront the challenges of our era and of their part of the world. The good news is that if we do these three things, we are going to have another American century. If we reform our tax code, our regulatory code, if we fully utilize our energy portfolio, if we replace this horrible healthcare law with a better one, we will have the most vibrant economy in the world again, the best place in the world for someone to invent something new and create jobs and open a business, the best place in the world to work. And we will create millions of better paying jobs, not just new jobs, better paying jobs. That alone is not enough. We also have to empower our people with 21st century skills. But today we have leaders that want to continue to pour money into an outdated 20th century higher education system. We need a 21st century higher education system. One that, for starters, graduates people from high school ready to work as welders, and as plumbers, and as electricians, and as airplane mechanics, and air conditioning repairmen. These are good jobs. They pay good money. And somehow we've stigmatized them in this country. We need a new higher education system that's flexible, so that someone who works at the front desk here, but is trying to go to school, can go to school on nights, and on weekends, and on their own pace, and online. So that a single mother who works as a receptionist at a law firm making $10 an hour can become a paralegal making $60,000 a year. Innovative, flexible programs that allow them to package learning from a variety of different places and to get credit for what they already know. And third, we need to reform the existing higher education system. Traditional college will still matter, but we can't keep graduating people with a mountain of debt and degrees that don't lead to jobs, which is why I believe that before you take out a student loan, the college should tell you, to be required to tell you, this is how much people make when they graduate with that degree from our school, so that our students have an informed decision they can make. And last but not least, we have to reinvigorate America's role in the world. Because no matter how much we grow our economy, or how much we empower our people with 21st century skills, none of it will matter if we are not safe. And the world is growing increasingly insecure. In Asia, the Chinese believe they own the South China Sea, which is a big problem, because 50% of global commerce goes through there. And that's why we need to create a coalition, Australia and India and Japan and South Korea and the Philippines and other countries, to create a balance in that region to counter the military expansionism of China. In Europe, Vladimir Putin is trying to redraw the lines in Europe. And that's why we need to reinvigorate NATO and work with our Baltic allies to ensure that the price will be too high for him to continue. The Middle East has been unstable for 3,800 years, but never like this. The rise of radical jihadists pose an extraordinary threat, which is why we should work with our Sunni allies in the region to confront them. American air power, intelligence, and logistical support, supporting a ground force of Sunni Arab allies that want to go in on the ground and defeat radical Sunni terrorists. And that's why we need to deal with Iran's hegemonic ambitions as well. Iran's dreams that they will be the Shia power that dominates the Middle East, and to achieve that, they need military dominance by driving America out and a nuclear weapon. And we cannot allow that to happen, which is why we should work with our partners in the region to ensure that it doesn't. It also means we need to stand strongly with our ally Israel. There is a moral reason for it. The state of Israel was created as a homeland for the Jewish people. So never again, facing the sort of persecution that they faced during the Holocaust, would there never be a place on earth where they could go. But there's also a geopolitical reason for it. You see, Israel is the only pro-American, free enterprise democracy in the Middle East. Imagine how much better our lives would be and how much safer the world would be if there were more pro-American democracies that were free enterprise in the Middle East. But there's at least one, and we should do everything we can to preserve it, protect it, and stand alongside me. These challenges are serious, but they're not insurmountable. We can do all three of these things. We have it within our power, and it is clearly within our reach to reinvigorate our economy, to equip our people with the skills they need, and to once again reinvigorate America's role in the world. And if we do these three things, we are going to be the generation forever known as being the generation that ushered in another American century. But to do so will require us to turn the page on yesterday. Because the 20th century is gone, and it's never coming back. Life in America was fantastic in the 20th century, but it'll never be that way again. History will not stop for us. The world will continue to move forward, and we will either keep pace and own it, or we will be left behind by it. This is not a new place for us as Americans. At the turn of the 19th century, America was still a developing country. Europe, particularly Great Britain, was the great power on earth. But that generation of Americans chose to embrace the promise of industrialization, and it was disruptive. It moved people from farms into factories. It created labor problems and health problems and all sorts of workplace safety problems. It was traumatic. But at the end of that process, because that generation of Americans embraced it, we emerged the most prosperous economy and the most powerful country on earth. Now the time has come for this generation of Americans to embrace the opportunities of a new era, of a post-industrial economy dramatically different than the one we leave behind. And if we do, the promise of this new era is extraordinary. And not only will the American dream survive, it will reach more people and change more lives than ever before. For all of us, this should be deeply personal, because virtually any American you bump into is someone who is just a generation or two removed from someone who knew what life was like somewhere else. I said at the outset the story of my parents. One of the things I've always believed is that while America owes me absolutely nothing, I have a debt to America I will never repay. This is not simply the country I grew up in. This is the nation that literally changed the history of my family. And when I have the chance to stand in front of a room like this and a venue like this, I'm reminded of my own parents. I told you the story of my father. My father lost his mother when he was 9 years old. He lived in Havana, his mother died, and he had to go to work. He would work for the next 70 years of his life. He finished school. He came to America and did all kinds of jobs, but eventually he settled down and became a bartender at a hotel. Banquets, weddings, bar mitzvahs, and anything. A lot of speeches like this. My father had dreams when he was a young man. He had ideas about what he wanted to do with his own life, but they became impossible for him. And the purpose of his life became to give us the chance to do all the things he never could. And that's why well into his 70s, he worked on nights, weekends, and holidays, including on days when I am sure he didn't want to go to work, on days when he was tired, on days when he wished he could stay home. On days when I'm sure he wondered, what is this all for? But he found purpose in his life, and his purpose was, he wanted to ensure that the doors that had closed for him would never close for us. That the opportunities he never had, that we would. He didn't push me to go into politics or anything in specific. He just wanted to make sure that whatever dreams we had for ourselves, we would have the chance to achieve. That was possible because America was special. And the question of whether we remain special or not will be answered by whether those dreams are still possible. The men and women that work in this hotel, the people that clean the room and serve the food and drive the trucks and fix the airplanes, can they leave their children better off than themselves? Can they do for their children what you did for yours? What your parents did for you, and what my parents did for me? If they can, America remains exceptional. And if they can't, we will be the first Americans to lead the next generation more so. That is the choice in 2016. This election is not about Republicans and Democrats. This election is not about what laws we're going to pass. This election is a question: what kind of country do we want to be? And I believe that we will answer that we want to be special. And what we need now are leaders that understand what it will take to be special in this new century and to embrace it. And always remember this: what makes us special is not that we have rich people, because every country in the world has rich people. What makes us special is that here, millions and millions of people who aren't rich and aren't famous achieve happiness and a better life. And if we preserve that, we will leave for our children what our parents left for us, the most extraordinary nation in all of human history. So that will be not just the purpose of this campaign, but the purpose of my presidency. And I want to thank you for the help you've given me here today to pursue both that message and that agenda. And I believe that if we follow through on these things, you and I will be able to author the greatest chapter in the history of America. We will be the authors of the new American century. Thank you for the